Hello everyone and welcome to Global Azure 2020. My name is Ronald Mariah and I'm a Microsoft MVP in Azure from South Africa. Today I'm going to be speaking to you about serverless on Azure. So what is serverless to begin with? Serverless is a deployment model where the underlying infrastructure which our application runs on is provided and maintained by the cloud provider, which in this case is Microsoft. The cloud provider is responsible for the uptime of the environment and ensuring that patches are done on systems, and you as a cloud customer are responsible for the application, which includes the security of it. To develop Azure Functions, you write pieces of code in one of the many languages that are supported. For example, JavaScript, C#, Java, Python, PowerShell, or TypeScript. And there's many more languages that are coming soon. When you deploy Azure Functions to Azure, we have three types of deployment options. There's a consumption plan, the premium plan, and also the dedicated plan, which is hosted on app services. There's also many ways you can deploy your code as well. So there's external package URL, zip deploys, Docker containers, web deploys, source control, local Git, Cloud Sync, FTP, and even manually creating them on the Azure portal. For this talk, I'm mainly going to be focused on the premium plan for Azure Functions, since it supports Docker containers. It also has the benefit of keeping instances perpetually warm, meaning that there's no cold starts. You can also integrate the functions into virtual networks so that functions can call into backend systems if needed. You also have unlimited duration of functions. There's also the options when it comes to instance sizes, so you can have 1 core, 2 cores, or 4 cores. You also have more predictable pricing and high density app allocation for apps with multiple function apps. So what are the benefits of using Docker instead of just deploying functions as a zip file? One reason might be is that your company already uses Docker for other projects and want to reuse those skills. Another reason might be that you need more control over the Linux environment where your function app runs. With Docker, you can modify that container as you wish. In Visual Studio, I'm going to create a new Azure Functions app called Global Azure. The template that will be created will have an HTTP trigger function, and I'm going to ensure that the function uses anonymous authentication for this demo. Next, I'm going to run this app locally. In the console window, I will copy the URL of the function app, and in a command prompt shell, I will call this function using curl. Next, I'm going to create a Docker file. This Docker file will use multi-stage Docker builds to first build the app using the .NET Core SDK, then package the binaries in the .NET Runtime image. In another command prompt window, I will now build the function image using the Docker CLI and tag it with the name Global Azure 1.0. Once that is complete, I can now create a container from that image and connect to port 80 on the container using port 3000 on localhost. We repeat the same process again using a command prompt window to query the function API, which is now running in the Docker container. I'm going to create a resource group in my Azure subscription. In this resource group, I'm going to create a container registry. I will use this container registry to host my Docker container in the cloud. When I create the container registry, I will give it a name, a location, and choose to enable admin user for this demo. Next, I'm going to change the tag that is assigned to the existing Docker image. The new tag will have the full name of my new container registry that I just created. Before pushing to the registry, ensure that the new tag is correct. If you get a no such host error, then it's most likely a mistype in the domain name of the registry in the tag. Once the image is pushed to the registry on Azure, I can now create a function app on Azure in the same resource group I created earlier, and also in the same region. I'm also going to choose Docker container as the publish type. Once a new function app is created, we can navigate to the container settings under code deployment and change the default container to use the new image in our registry. Once the image is updated, we can now go back to the command prompt shell and use curl to query the API that is now running on the function app on Azure. This concludes my talk for Global Azure. I would like to thank you all for joining me for the session. If you do want to connect with me, follow me on Twitter. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and see you guys next time.